Welcome to Let's Talk Valuechain, a podcast where we explore the different activities, trends, topics, and components within value chains from manufacturing to impacts on supply chains to AI to blockchains.
Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Valuechain. Today we are with Georgi Iliev from Nottingham Trent University, CBIT. So Georgi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, like to introduce yourself and what is CBIT?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much for having me here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Georgi Iliev, and I'm the head of CBIT Venture Builder. And on paper, the Venture and Product Development Manager here at Nottingham Business School in Nottingham Trent University. Essentially, what CBIT Venture Builder does is we're focusing on helping early stage businesses and entrepreneurs scale effectively. And we sort of do this by providing a combination of due diligence, business model innovation, growth hacking strategies that de-risk the entire scaling process. And in a nutshell, our mission is to empower disruptors, helping them break through industry norms and transform their sort of respective sectors while driving positive societal impact. I think that's one of my best pitches so far, And in terms of the actual Venture Builder, the Venture Builder sits within a newly established center here at the university. It's called the Center for Business and Industry Transformation, aka CBIT, and hence CBIT Venture Builder. And what is quite unique about the center is that it sort of combines the three main domains that most of the universities have. On paper, we're a research team, so we do have research capabilities and capacity for us to work on different projects. And we recently landed 1.2 million from EPSRC to develop, it's quite detailed, but in a nutshell, is to develop a digital twin of the bee farming processes on farms. Then we also have our educational sort of offering that is kind of self-explanatory. We have different educational products sit within the business school here, and on the enterprise side of things, this is why we have the Venture Builder, and we have a few different small shrinks within that sector as well. And in a nutshell, that's pretty much it.
That sounds really exciting, Georgi. So,
Thanks.
Would you want to first tell us, how did you end up here, right? So, what's gotten you to support ventures? And obviously, I know you from before your time.
Yeah, we've known each other for a while.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, so, I'm not sure how much time we have for that, but a quick summary of how I ended up here. So my journey sort of has always been driven by my passion for technology and of course, innovation. And early days, I started off as a software engineer and later moved into product development roles and eventually taking up sort of the leadership position, obviously CBIT Venture Builder. Prior to this, I was involved in different accelerator programs, and WMG Accelerator, where we actually met. And also, I've been around tech pretty much my entire career, and that's what sort of excites me as well. And that has led me to my current role at CBIT, where I help startups such as, obviously, Valuechain, navigate critical early stages of their business development from market validation to securing funding and scaling the entire business operation. And the best thing about my job, in my opinion, is I'm working directly with founders and I'm sort of seeing their business grow and I'm seeing their successes. And that's the most rewarding part of my job, because some of the businesses that we're working with are mega exciting. A shameless plug here. One of the businesses that we're working with is a company called FreeAim VR. So what these guys are doing is, honestly, it's pretty cool. So you imagine, how you have virtual reality headsets, right? The main problem with that is that you're limited to the space of your living room. So what actually the CEO of that company has done is, how they have virtual reality treadmills for virtual reality headsets?
Yeah.
So what he's done is he's taken that sort of treadmill innovation approach and he's brought it down to a shoe size.
Yeah.
So he's developed a shoe that allows you to move freely in VR and not just sort of you're walking, the ambition is the sort of hardware progresses, you'll be able to jump, crawl, run, jog, all in VR. And the applications of this technology, I mean, think about any industry, any training industry, that is definitely super applicable.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. So, in your role and with your experience with the venture builder, what are some of the key challenges you see startups and startup founders facing today?
Well, there's a bunch of them. Where do I start? Right. So in terms of the challenges we face or the challenges that the startups face?
The startups face.
Oh, well, I mean, I guess startups today, they face a bunch of challenges. If you ask them, the biggest challenge, they will tell you is always funding. But from my experience, that usually is not the main challenge, and they tend to not realize that. And I guess this is where organizations such as CBIT Venture Builder comes in place. One of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, is they have not found a great product market fit, and they do not necessarily realize that. And once we onboard them on the program and through the work that we did together, this is how they eventually realized that this could have been done in a different way. And I mean, you probably know this as well. Many founders are passionate about their products, and they often struggle to ensure that there's a real demand in the market, or that they've sort of, have we targeted the right customers? And I guess our friend Jay, he always loved to say they have fallen in love with the idea, which is what we see pretty much on a day-to-day basis through most of the applications that we received at CBIT Venture Builder.
Yeah.
And this is the main one of the main areas of support that we bring to all of these ventures, because we give them more clarity on what could be done. And I guess what we're good at is taking the existing innovation / IP and then thinking, where else could this be applicable? Can it solve problems in other industries? Can it solve a relevant problem within a closely related industry to the industries that they were initially targeting? And this is sort of some of the work that we do with these companies. And probably another key challenge that they always sort of mention is sort of the funding and the sort of raising of money and capital. But in my opinion, it's not just about raising money and capital in general. It's about raising the right kind of capital at the right time as well. And you probably experiencing, and you experience this as well. And operational inefficiencies are another hurdle that startups tend to really overlook. And we see this often and often again. And that's where CBIT Venture Builder sort of comes in, where we help startups streamline their processes, validate their business models, and find the right sort of market channels for growth. And my colleague Connor, he spent a lot of time as a chief marketing officer, and he's currently heading our growth hacking activities for all of the businesses that we work with. And the results we are seeing are actually great. We're seeing some really good successful pivots from companies. And I mean, these are the 2-3 main challenges, but I think the list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think you hit on quite important points there. One, not all money is the right money for every startup.
Correct.
Because as I've mentioned it to a few people as well, you're going to get, you're going to use up the money within a timeline, but you're going to be left with the people on your board. And then you have to basically run your business with that in mind. And when we've been looking for investors as well, I think, our approach has been, it's not, they need to be adding more value than just money. So they need to understand our domain, or, B2B SaaS or supply chain, because that's the only way, there's a relevant expectation set on, how things run in industry, because every industry is different. I think the other aspect which talk about operation efficiencies and processes, absolutely. I think, again, what we've learned ourselves is, I come from working for a large business for 10 years. And when you're working in a large business, there's a lot of systems and processes in place. When you work in a startup, you're pretty much starting from scratch. And
you did everything.
Tools out there that could get very overwhelming. as well. And you need the right processes and systems to put in place, because if you don't, then as you go from, a 1% team to a 10% team to a 100% team, you cannot keep doing the same activities. It doesn't really work. So you need to use the right systems that can give you the right data and insights in place. So
sort of,
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's the main thing that excites me right now. And I think you and me are both techies, right?
Yeah.
Some of the AI tools available right now can really offload a lot of CEO stress, in my opinion.
Massively.
So I think if there's a business owner or CEO or future CEO listening to what you and me are blabbing on right now, get yourself some of the AI tools and start testing them and implementing them in your business processes and try to fail with them quicker. But what I found over the last few months is that there's a lot of things that were previously not impossible, but really hard to get to, especially if you're a 1-man, 2-man band. But nowadays, you actually don't really need that much resource to get things done.
No, and you're absolutely right, because we have seen that within our team. I mean, we use ChatGPT and Claude quite a lot. Our marketing team does, operation teams does, not necessarily for everything, but for aspects that will fast track either our thinking. Or
absolutely, that's exactly what I meant.
But what I've also seen, and it's an interesting trend, which should be very interesting to get your thoughts on as well, as AI's capability to code is increasing massively. Now, that being, let's say a hobbyist developer myself, what that led into is I could build a product from scratch in a matter of weeks, working with just one junior developer, which would have taken me 5 full-time developers to do in that same time scale. And similar or better quality output in that case.
I cannot agree more with exactly what you just said. So funny enough, how we're becoming a little bit technical, so hopefully people don't start complaining about that. But I want to talk about this because it really excites me, which is, how previously developers, product developers, engineers used to talk about what's your preferred tech stack.
Yeah.
And people was like, oh, it would be like a mean tech stack, a modern tech stack, PHP, or what's your code editor. These days, I'm like, oh, what's my tech stack? It's GPT or Claude.
Yeah.
In the initial stage, then it will be something like Cursor AI that would fine tune and refine the code, and then it will be V0, sort of some of the other front end sort of AI tools there that would help me connect the front end with all the stuff that I've done on Cursor. And even Cursor can do all of that. And like you said, you can have an idea at 9 a.m. and you can have a POC at 1 p.m. the same day. And you can have a potential MVP by midnight, if not even faster, depending on obviously how complex
exactly. And I think
trying to
that's the big powerful aspect of this is it's really enabling people. You still need to know the tech coding and tech stacks and what you would want to build. But like, for example, Replit, which is another online platform to do these things, they've just released this feature, which I've been trying out. You can just tell it, this is the app that I want to build. It will decide the tech stack, build that app for you, and you can do the cloud deployment.
Yep.
All of that stuff. And it's amazing to the fact that it can do that. It's still, it's 50% accurate, right? So it still has bugs and stuff, but it's moving in the right direction. Same with voice flow, right? You can build an AI chatbot end to end with really high precision, leveraging what OpenAI and Claude and all the others are doing. So I think problem solving can become easier, especially for people, like us who see the problem and know what needs to be done, but, do not have the resources to necessarily sit down and spend, hundreds of thousands to build a proof of concept of MVP, which also means we can validate ideas quicker, right? Like putting it out in front of customers. The danger that I do see, or where I know people who will slow down on this, is professional developers. And the reason I say that is, anybody who's a professional in any field always has this bias that they can do it better than what an AI can do, which is right in principle, but that's not the point of it. It's about accelerating what you can do in a short amount of time. If an AI can write 10,000 lines of code for me of repeatable stuff, that saved me a lot of time. Obviously, you need to be able to identify and debug it. Sometimes you might find be doing that, but as it's becoming stronger, So that's one thing that I feel that hobbyists and people who are more interested in solving the problem rather than saying that I wrote everything myself, every single line of code and those are the people who might not leverage it quick enough. Whereas people who are like, they're interested in solving the problem for the end user and bringing that product out to market are the ones and the startups who are going to leverage this more, because those startups can actually scale much quicker. They can have quicker product iterations come out, test out with the customer, iterate, commercialize with a very small team. And that's, I think, where this thought process comes from. Is previously you needed millions of investment and huge amount of investor, huge amount of team to build $1 billion business. But now you can potentially build $1 billion business with a 10% team, and it's very possible.
Well, it's funny you said that, because when we first met, when I was the accelerator program back then, a lot of the founders that we came across was like, if they were sole CEO and were lacking the technical person in the team, was like, well, the reason why I'm not successful is because I don't have a CTO.
Yeah.
And nowadays, you can't really make such claims, because probably you cannot build the entire product end to end, but easily, if you're building a SaaS solution, you can easily build a POC with what's available out there. As long as you speak English, I think that's the only requirement. And you have a logical train of thought.
I think that's also what it does is, and what I've seen myself trying to do with this is, if you have a clear vision of what you want to build, you can actually build that very quickly. It's all about that prompt engineering, right? You need to give it the right prompts and the right direction, which you would have had to do with a CTO or a developer anyway, to be able to explain them, this is what I want to happen in the app. This is what the user would do. So I think that's really exciting aspect of it. But, coming back to the venture builder, obviously there's a huge amount of value that you guys are adding to these companies and processes to get them to leverage and scale up. And I really love the idea about for them to be able to understand the pivots, because that, I think, is a very important aspect for most companies. I mean, Slack would have never happened if they would have been the company they were previously. They pivoted to become what they were. So I think that's really interesting stuff. How does that, for any startups listening today, within the value that you are adding, how does that model work with CBIT? So apart from them applying in, is there an equity stake that you guys take in? How does that whole setup work?
Yeah, I mean, just to answer your last question, there is no equity involved.
Yeah.
Our main sort of wins from us working with a particular business is that we do document all of the impact that business had generated together, and then we work on various case studies. Then we release through all of the channels that we have. And also, because we are based at a university, what that allows us is a lot of the businesses that we work with tend to apply for different grant opportunities available there. And because, like I mentioned to you earlier, we have a research team has different capabilities. We have AI people in our research team that can develop products, build some of the AI functionality into your business. We have a lot of experts on supply chains, which I guess you'll be of interest to you and the guys on Valuechain as well. I have done multiple projects on sort of validity and scalability of different supply chains, and there's a lot of things that the guys can do there. And what that allows us to do is to build consortiums with all of our partners, because we actually have a dedicated community manager in our team that takes care of the entire community and makes sure that everyone is active. So whenever an opportunity comes along, we are quick to respond to the different opportunities available there. So I think that's obviously one of the other sort of revenue streams for us. But in terms of what the startups have to bring to the table, there is the main requirement for them is to be pretty much registered in the UK, as long as that's ticked. And then they're sort of ESG friendly business, which pretty much most of the businesses all of the businesses that we're working at, most of the businesses that we come across tick that box. Then the only other requirement we have is we are after some sort of traction from these particular ventures. And traction could mean a lot of things. So it could be, for example, you might have raised pre-seed or seed round, and then we have at least the investors backing who have already believed in your business. So as long as you take that, and we are more than happy to have a discussion and potentially board you and work with you then you could build a great product that solves a super relevant problem in an industry. And then during our due diligence process, when you first apply, we always look at obviously the total addressable market and service obtainable market of that particular industry. So we know that there's definitely wins for you and your venture there. And then there's going to be a lot of impact generated from you developing that business. So we're definitely interested in helping you, making sure that you succeed in that process, because essentially your wins are our wins, and the impact that your business generates is our impact as well. And that's pretty much all we ask for, the ability for us to collaborate on sort of different opportunities and being able to document the success stories that your venture has. Yeah. And sort of, you mentioned how we embed into their process. Was that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when startups sort of have an idea or they pitched us with an idea, we run an initial due diligence process. After that, we go through a little pitch stage where they pitch to one of our team members or selected team members. And then as long as we say yes, that venture is onboarded. And then from there onwards, the real sort of work starts, sort of the real work happens. And I believe, and also speaking with quite a lot of our community members, they've kind of expressed the same opinion, that our program is quite unique because we go beyond traditional accelerator offerings. So what I mean by that is that we don't just provide mentorship. We, in a way, partner with founders in what we call a sparring partnership approach. So, you know, like how in boxing, right? You would spar with your partner, you would jab him, eventually you might even punch him in a way that he wasn't expected, just like how the market can give you a reality slap to you as a founder. And we make sure that as long as we in our gym, which is the workshop space, we try to provide you we try to be the best sparring partner for your venture. Yeah. And we work directly with startups to build out their business models. Yeah. Through business model planning sessions, through our growth hacking strategies. We help them with sort of customer acquisition. We also focus heavily on investment preparation, because that's what a lot of them sort of trying to achieve at the end of the program. Yeah. And we're pretty much ensuring this. Well, we're also ensuring that exactly that. And the ultimate goal is to, in a way, empower startups to scale sustainably. And we sort of have the network to do so as well, because we have worked with different stakeholders throughout the last few years, and we work with industries, well, pretty much most of the industries that I can think of.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And, I think that's a real value for any startups, because, that guided approach does really make a difference, because once you look into the different aspects, especially as a founder or CEO, trying to look at all these different aspects, any support that you can get and any best practices will save you months and months of, painful experiences as well.
And sorry, just to add something to that. One of the feedback that we have got from obviously all of the businesses that we work with is the fact that we try to be always available for them. Yeah. So what that means is it's not a one-to-many approach where you get like 20 businesses in a room, and we do not provide a solution that solves all problems of all businesses. Yeah. Everything is super tailored to your own needs. Yeah. Which we spend a lot of time trying to understand together with you as a founder and senior manager in that particular venture. And also, we really want to make sure that you're successful. And what has recently happened, actually, we worked on a grant with one of our businesses. It was a very sort of last minute call. Yeah. They gave me a buzz. Hey, Georgie, there's this opportunity. We only have 24 to 48 hours to put in an application. So we pretty much pulled an all-nighter trying to make sure that we help them sort of put the application in the right way.
Yeah, nice. I think, again, those things, do make a whole lot of difference when it comes to businesses and any support they can get. I think time management is not necessarily a founder's best habit in the early days specifically, right? So I think that's it. Any help on that is definitely useful. One thing before we go to the closing session is how much emphasis you see these early stage founders or the founders that you work with putting on revenue versus fundraise. Do they have a bias towards more focusing on fundraise than focusing on revenue growth?
It's funny you said that, because I think we've become better at our way of screening for sort of good, successful ventures as well, because previously a lot of the businesses that used to come through the door and they used to obviously inquire about the venture builder program were like, oh, I want to secure this amount of funding this year. I want to raise a pre-seed fund.
Yeah.
I want to speak with more investors. And that's great. Don't get me wrong. That's absolutely great. And that's the right mentality they need to have. But what we often see is that a lot of them have actually never polished their business model. And the, like I said to you earlier, the product market fit, the value proposition probably wasn't really there. And actually the revenue streams that they thought they had were never ever validated with a customer. And the first thing we say to these type of businesses when they obviously apply to the program is, if they're successful, the first immediate feedback is go out and test your solution in the market and come back to us with the findings. And then we'll do another iteration. Even though you're knowing the program rate, we'll do another iteration of you just to make sure that you can actually add some value to your venture. And then as long as you do that successfully, or even if you fail a couple of times, then you come back with some promise from the market, then we'll definitely consider you again for the program.
Awesome. No, I think that's absolutely relevant advice. And I think it's definitely the right approach, because I feel the same as like, having been, running effectively a remodel startup now, we have to focus both on revenue, because without revenue, you don't scale.
Yep.
And, when you're going in for revenue, you are focusing on iterating the product, getting the customer feedback, both good and the bad, right? Because even the bad feedback tells you, for somebody firstly to take the time to give you bad feedback, that's positive as well, right? Like there's a market who's interested in actually giving you feedback on stuff that is not working. And
absolutely.
Sustainable growth only comes from revenue, right? The fundraise is a tool to enable you to get there faster if used the correct way, right?
And our ultimate success story of a venture that will come through our doors is you would not need investment. You would not need investment. You will be in a position where you have fantastic cash flow, great revenue, you're making profit as well. And that's ideally the best success story. And one of our companies raised like 10 million, but they're actually making a loss every year. So that's not what we try to push businesses to do. That's great. But like you said, revenue also de-risks the entire investment process. Yeah. So if you recently have gone and spoken to some of the guys from VC, they always tell you the same story. Oh, we only do Series A. Recently we only do Series A, and we require revenue of X amount. And even some of the seed rounds these days are like, oh, yeah, we are actually, the criteria they give you is mainly tailored to Series A, Series B sort of raises. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's very interesting.
No, absolutely. I think that market is adopting to that approach as well. So before we finish, Georgi, is there any last advice you had for any of the listeners who are founders, startups, or looking to get into, the adventurous world of startups?
Well, apart from don't do it. Nah, just kidding. Well, like we said earlier, the AI tool these days allow pretty much everyone with an idea to go and test it and validate it quickly. And even with some of the more sort of hardcore sciencey sort of ideas where, sort of the different AI technologies might not be that useful, is if you don't try it, you never know. Try to surround yourself with the right people around you, because in business, just how it is in life, you need to find the right people to do the right things. So try to grow your network, even though you might not even be a founder yet, because you might come across the people that one day you might co-found a venture with.
Yeah.
And also you're going to learn a lot from them, right? So I think that's one of the main important things. A lot of the guys that want to be founders, I think should do, and most of them sort of, at least the ones that are around me, are definitely doing very actively. And I guess what we said earlier probably is very relevant these days, which is, I think startups, they really need to focus just as much on customer acquisition strategies and market feedback as they do on building the product as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical to engage with potential customers early on in the process and refine your offering. And I mean, we're just an established venture builder sort of here up in Nottingham, but you don't have to hear it from me. Hear it from the guys at YC. They've been preaching it for 20 years now. And well, there must be a reason for it,
No, absolutely. So, that's, thank you for being on our episode. And if anybody is interested to understand more about NTU's CBIT Venture Builder, then, follow us on LinkedIn, drop in a comment or DM us as well. Again, the contact information are available in the show notes. Sorry, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much for the invitation. And finally, a shameless plug, if I'm allowed to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess Valuechain will be talking to one of our new conferences coming up later this month on the 30th of October in Nottingham. So if you want to hear from me and Nishant and some of our team members, just come and join us on the 30th of October. We're going to be here in Nottingham.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be sharing more about that on our social media feed as well.
Hope you enjoyed this episode and found our discussion intriguing and exciting. If you want to connect with me or any of our guests, you can see our content and connect details in the summary of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Valuechain. Valuechain is a leading B2B SaaS platform for intelligent collaboration, performance management, net zero supply chain identification, risk and resilience building, and a platform to help you manage your local and global supply chains.